Okay, we now are in for a treat with a really exciting piece of research done by our friends at Microsoft. CBS has done a lot of work with Microsoft. They are really very innovative in their approach to advertising and their approach to marketing. And so it is my pleasure to introduce the presentation titled Not Your Mama's Ad Research, Microsoft's Brand Renovation, presented by Kathleen Hall and Kajoli Tankha.
I'm very excited to be here. My friend actually is Kajoli. I mispronounced it for years, so I just figured I'd correct it. We thought it'd be interesting to have both of us come, because frankly, we are the partnership and the team that is charged with creating the strategy, the assessment, and the impact diagnostics for all of our advertising and media. So the combination of the two of us is really what makes it all work. Relative to the conversation that was just being had, I'm going to take it upstream a little bit, because me wanting to know whether or not an ad is working and working relative to media is way down the funnel from the kind of diagnostics we have to start with, which is, where's our brand? What's going on in the consumer context? Where have we been and what can we become? All of those bigger, kind of higher level pictures. And frankly, this is when it all started. I think most of you remember this. I'm a New Yorker, by the way, so I'm so excited to be back here and talk fast. But if I get too fast, let me know. We're going to try and jam a lot in. At the time I took the job at Microsoft, this was the campaign on television. And who doesn't remember this campaign? Probably one of the most effective campaign platforms of all time. Really great creative. And what it basically did was completely demoralize every employee at Microsoft, right? Because who are we? We're the big fat white guy, right? And also, who wants to go here? My friends and family were like, are you kidding me? And the headhunter had it perfect. He said, if you go to Microsoft and you fix it, you're a hero. You go to Microsoft and you fail, it's Microsoft. Nobody cares. You'll be fine. So it was kind of true. So basically, the challenge at first was not, can I do a great ad? The challenge was, who are we? And how do we recover from this? And those of you who, again, have been around for a while remember that the reason for this was Vista. And the interesting thing about Vista was, it wasn't such a bad product. It was a really shitty marketing strategy. Because the old way of doing technology advertising was launch it and leave it, right? New version, 10 weeks, blast, see you next release. And the problem was, the press kind of turned negative, and there was no money left. The strategy had been, there was no ability to respond in market and no mechanisms in market to figure out, why are people not liking this thing? Because there was a little thing called the Mojave experiment. I don't know if anybody remember that creative, where they basically blind taste tested Vista versus the Mac OS. And 9 out of 10 people picked Vista. So we had a problem that was more branding and marketing than it actually was product experience. But regardless, we had to recover from that. And in some ways, we deserved the beating we were taken because we didn't prepare ourselves for this. The key challenge fundamentally was our brand stands for familiarity. People are comfortable with our OS. You'll see later there's Windows 7 still on this device. You know why? Why am I going to change? We get quotes from people that say, oh, Windows is like my bedroom slippers. They look like crap, but I love them, and they feel good. And you just get comfortable. So when you have a brand that's rooted in familiarity and comfort in a category that's all about evolution and change, you have a big tension. How much change is enough? And how can we get there? So fundamentally, our job here was to take this guy and basically queer eye for the straight guy and fix him up and make him cool and hip and make people want to buy our products again. But as I said, a big challenge was internal, because guess what? Technology, we're a data-driven company. And we did not have, collectively, the mechanisms in place to make the case for why we should be doing marketing and what kind of marketing was going to be effective for Microsoft. So we created the yin and yang team. I'm an English major. I'm going to really off-balance this whole room. I think the reason I wasn't valedictorian was that trigonometry and calculus was just my downfall. So anyway, I partner with someone who has the strengths that I don't have, right? We needed great data and analytics to create the case for good advertising. But then we need the art. I actually shudder, and I'm glad I'm 33 years into this, and I hope I'm not here when there's a formula for making great creative. Because anybody watched the Tonys last night? Who would have thought the formula for Hamilton would have worked, right? When I first heard about it, I'm like, rap about American history that are basically counter character casts. It's just crazy. But that's what creativity is. So I don't want anything necessarily telling me what the formula for the creative is. I want it to inform the strategy that gets me the right fodder for the creative team to put their genius up against it. And that's really what we do collectively together. So I'm going to run through very quickly sort of some creative highlights of the journey that Microsoft took, touch briefly on. Any one of these would probably be an hour presentation if we really dove into the research that was behind all of this. But I think you'll get a flavor for it. And then at the end, Kajoli will take you through our real-life diagnostics that we do every week, week in and week out, to make sure we're iterating appropriately and creating great campaigns for Microsoft. Sound good? Yeah. Okay, so here's the first thing we had to do. We had no emotional point of view. As I said, we were emotionally battered as a company. I think the most important thing that marketing does sometimes for a company is tell it what to believe about itself. Like, great marketing makes you stand up and cheer for your company. And as I said, our company was beaten down. The next phase was we had to change the tone and manner of our marketing because we were coming from behind. We were believing that we were no longer the cool, hip front runner, and we had to change that and really reestablish a challenger mentality in the company. Next, we had to teach people how to storytell. We talked about this a little bit. Storytelling is key, and people either have that muscle or don't, but it can be learned and can be taught, and people emulate great storytelling once they're exposed to it. And lastly, as a brand, what we had to do was define a new norm. We don't follow. No great brands follow the other brand ahead of them. They have to set the new norm for the category. And we did that by really staking out territory and things that we believe in, right? A creed is what a brand needs. We believe. And we actually wrote the creed for Microsoft and distributed it to get people to understand what it is we're all about. So let me take you through some of these phases. The first thing we did in establishing the emotional point of view was some of the most valuable research I think I've ever experienced in my long career. And is anyone from ZMet here? Terrible, I'm making a public pitch for ZMet. I love visual-based research. And what this was basically a collage technique. We did it around the globe. It's very Jungian in its essence. It's more about metaphors than archetypes. But it basically gets to what is the essence of this brand. And the exercise really was to have people around the globe come in with their collages and basically do a 1-hour in-depth, based sort of like a psychological interview around what the pictures they brought in mean. And the net of it, again, this could be an hour presentation in and of itself, was that we had a brand dichotomy. The brand stood for two things. On the left side, the picture of the mountain was a picture actually people brought in, visuals of mountains and skyscrapers and office buildings, the man exercising in the circle there was strength. So we were all about strength, strong foundation, kind of a very rational essence of that part of the brand. On the other hand, the girl with the box of butterflies is one of my favorite visuals. A woman from China brought in and said, you're about access to the possibilities of the world. You're about empowering me to be everything I can be. You're my connection to the world. Really rich. I mean, I was worried going into this, there would be more emotional connection to my pantyhose than, this. It was just amazing how, I don't even you don't even use that word anymore. But anyway, I've been in focus groups about pantyhose before. So it was really amazing how rich and deep this emotional imagery was. And the other thing was how much it was rooted around the world. In countries like Brazil, in fact, Microsoft is a female brand, and she's seen as a nurturing mother when we do archetype studies. So we just didn't realize while we were getting the crap beat out of us in the United States, how much there was around the globe that we stood for that was rich and meaningful. So again, distilling this down very, very quickly and deeply, what we knew was that we had a rich emotional base for the brand. We had to stand for strength, opportunity, strong foundation, and yet emotionally the ability to access all that you wish for and all that you hope to be. Huge emotional relevance. So what we did was we used that as a creative platform, not only to inform the creative we develop, but also the visual presentation of the brand. When I first took over at Microsoft and said, let's do a creative review around the globe, I kid you not, there were ads with Chewbacca coming out of Norway. I had Star Wars, and again, a bunch of engineers usually were driving the creative, right? Star Wars in Sweden. I mean, the brand, if you traveled around, didn't even look like the same brand, multiple typefaces. So part of what this enabled us to do is we educated people on the emotional essence of the brand was to coalesce the visual presentation of the brand and give it meaning. Microsoft stands for color. While Apple is a white backgrounds, generally white color, we are about vibrancy. They're about I, we're about we. They're about exclusive, we're about inclusive. You couldn't have created more of a dichotomy between the two leaders in this category, but it exists. One does not demean the other, right? We can be about vibrancy and have that mean a lot for our brand without putting down what it means to be kind of the white exclusive brand. The other key learning was they're all about the device and we're all about the people. So I got a lot of richness I can work with there as a creative director. Let me just show you some of what that insight coalesced into.
What is technology? What can it do?
When I lost my eyesight, I thought that my painting days were over.
How far can we go?
By using your hands, you can actually control your X-ray.
Technology has the power to unite us.
Hang on, honey. Hang on.
There he is. You see him?
I can see him.
It inspires us. Technology has taken us places we've only dreamed.
Now I can do whatever I want.
It gives hope to the hopeless.
So your device is on. Can you hear me talking?
And it has given voice to the voiceless.
So we basically went from getting the crap beat out of us to doing it out in the Super Bowl, and I can't tell you the resistance to us marketing ourselves on the Super Bowl from many levels. Expense, is it the right time? Will we get the crap beat out of us? Will the press pick on us? But you know what we did? We did enough research to go to the SLT at our company and say, we believe this is the right, we tested Super Bowl ads for the past 10 years. Does humor work? I can't do monkeys and dogs. I don't have Clydesdales. None of that stuff would work for me. Guess what I have? I have real people doing amazing things with our product, and that's what our brand stands for, and that really set the tone and direction, I think, for the future and the evolution of Microsoft over time. Almost 80% of that footage was not shot. It was ripped from the internet. So we didn't make up what people were doing. They were already doing it. The guy who couldn't see, who, by the way, was a letterpress operator and used to design typeface, for those of us who knows what that is now painting because he can see pixels. The woman was hearing for the first time because Microsoft technology enables that hearing. The rocket propulsion, we didn't land everybody on the moon, but the rocket propulsion was designed on our products. So we are part of the world that's around you, but we're like electricity, right? You don't notice it unless it's not there. It's very hard to market an intangible. So the other sort of secondary effect, as I said, of that rerouting the brand and establishing the core of the brand was the visual evolution that took place. We changed the logo of a major company around the globe. We changed all of the brand logos within the company to feel like a family of brands. And you know what? Because of how we're structured in silos, which a lot of technology companies are, no way I'm changing my logo. I'm in the Office team. No way am I changing my Xbox logo. But what happens is when you do something, and you prove with data the success and the impact that changed people's perceptions of Microsoft and the products as being innovative, future thinking for people like me, a brand I love. Who loved Microsoft 10 years ago? It mattered, and everyone in the chain started to change the look and feel of their brands, because who doesn't want to be part of that? So that was step one, and the response, frankly, was phenomenal. The press was very kind to us. The research showed that we were in the top 3, 5. I mean, we were Ad Meter top 10. We were the #1 Super Bowl tech ad by Gizmodo, #1 Super Bowl ad by Kellogg. Adweek gave us an A. Time Inc. gave us an A. It was probably the most nerve-wracking night of my life, the night of that game. But we really came out strong. And I don't know if any of you remember the other spot we did around the same time, which was a year-end spot. A lot of great brands do year-end spots. A lot of people like Google have some great stuff to work with because they have all that great video footage. We didn't have a lot to work with, and I got a call on December 22nd to please do a year-end spot. The reason I remember it was my birthday, and I hadn't shopped for Christmas yet. And I'm like, okay, let's do a brand spot when every production house in the company's closed. So what we ended up doing was, and you can look it online, we ended up deciding that we would focus on women and what they accomplished. And one of the things that almost stopped us there was that Nelson Mandela died that year. And all the management of our company says, you can't do a year-end spot without Nelson Mandela. And I said, yes, we can, because we have Malala. And we have amazing women who have accomplished amazing things. And it was to the song, Be Brave, and you guys can take a look at it. I don't have time to show it today. But it was very successful. So I think those were two very big, very emotional statements from a company who had been beaten down and suddenly decided to pick its head up, dust itself off, and reestablish who we were and what we believed in. And as part of that, it then gave us the bravery to say, hey, you know what? We've always been seen as the big behemoth, but we're really the little guy. We got to act like the little guy. Apple's way ahead of us in tablets. We're not the category leader. We're not the big brand there. We're not winning in mobile. We got to start over. We're the little guy. And we had to imbue that sort of mentality into the company. And that was the insight for this next phase of marketing where we said, okay, now we know what our emotional true north is. Now we got to go to our products are better. They're actually better. Here's why.
Sorry, I don't update like that. I'm sorry, I can only do one thing at a time. I guess PowerPoint isn't one of those things. Should we just play chopsticks?
My Mac is great. It's so delightful.
So is my Surface. It's just as powerful.
You can write with a pen?
You can say that again. I really like my Surface Pro 3.
Hey, what's that? Is it a kickstand?
Touchscreen too. It's pretty slick, man.
It comes apart, I see.
It's got a USB.
I think I like your Surface Pro 3. No, seriously, where can I get one?
And again, when you go back to Formula for Creative, who knew? Like, we were worried about that guy's voice. Research told us no, people love that voice. For some reason, the 9 to 12-year-old set, everybody and their brother sent us videos of their kids singing this song. It was ridiculous. And you'll see in a minute on Nielsen, it was our highest recalled ad, I think, of the last 5 years. And basically, it just represented a change in attitude from us. We weren't afraid anymore to go head-to-head. Here's just quickly some of the Nielsen numbers, norm, and our performance relative to the norm and relative to the competition, and some of the press response. Microsoft turned Siri against Apple in a hilarious new ad. We're never disrespectful. One of the things the research told us is you can do a lot with humor. If you push a little too hard, it'll backlash against you. So we were very sensitive in tone and manner of compete. It wasn't a hard-hitting, really aggressive compete. So again, I'm going to move quickly because we're a little behind on time. Next, we had to continue to build depth around this brand and tell meaningful and relevant stories and really fundamentally make our voice the people's voice. And one issue we feel very passionately about is the issue of women in technology. We don't have enough women, when you dissect the problem, graduating from colleges and universities with science and technology and math degrees. It's because somewhere in middle school, it becomes uncool to be the girl in science. And with that insight, we put together what was just an online video, or meant to be, around International Women's Day and the response.
If you think about it, science is like everything. It can really help you uncover like small little secrets. I built a garage door opener, and I'm working on my own website.
I built a computer and I opened a fridge with a Lego.
When I was littler, I used to think technology was great. And then I started thinking that it was more of a boys' thing.
I think that inventing is like for boys because they have Albert Einstein invented, he was a guy, and Benjamin Franklin also.
There used to be a girl in the robotics class, but she quit, and so I'm the only girl left. Oh, you can't like science, you're a girl. You can't like any of these science things. In commercials, I saw a lot more men doing it.
They might really love science, but they might be like afraid. People might think, oh, don't boys do that? That's a boy thing.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. Dear Gabrielle, dear Anya, keep opening those garage doors.
We think you'll create something great for us one day. I might someday, but not yet, because I'm pretty much not old enough, but soon. It's just really cool that I would write a letter. It's
it's cool.
Now, we created a real website, and we had an email alias that the girls could actually respond to. We got phenomenal response, and all of the STEM women employed at Microsoft, virtually all of them, volunteered to mentor via a mentorship program the girls that responded. My favorite story, and also around the same time, we did our second Super Bowl spot. So we don't just have good freshman hits, we started to have good sophomore hits, which is always hard. And I encourage you to look at this year's International Women's Day spot, which is sort of take two on this idea of girls sticking with science, and also our second round Super Bowl spot, which then was considered in the top 3 with Budweiser and McDonald's. I mean, whoever thought that we would, Microsoft, be even considered in that company as a marketing team. So we're very excited about that. But the thing I'm most excited about is this. When we did that program, we got a letter from a mom of a daughter in Tunisia who, through an international divorce, had lost custody of her children. They were living in Tunisia. And the daughter had asked, can I get one of those letters from Microsoft? She saw the video. And we wrote her a letter, and this was her response. I take it to school every day. When I see it, I do good in all my quizzes and my work. All my friends saw it. Most importantly, my Bobs says, if I do good in all my work, I can achieve all my dreams. That, to me, means you're really making an impact. Beyond this, we then found out that she was learning Word and Excel on paper. Literally, they were learning it writing on paper. And we went to friends of ours at HP, and I said, how many computers do you have lying around? They said, maybe 10, 15. We got 300 computers sent to the schools in Tunisia, and we created a Girls Do Code Day. Another extension of the story. I'm going way too long, and I'm sorry. But a woman, older woman, came to the coding. Her husband busted in and said, how dare you be here? I didn't give you permission. The grandmother whipped him upside the head and said, what man does not want his wife to learn? So this is really meaningful, I think, cultural change that we're helping to impact, and really, is rewarding for people like us who really, want to just change the world as well as change companies. Lastly, now's the time. So we set the emotional core. We challenged the status quo with a more rational, why you should buy kind of sell. We expanded the brand to stand for issues. And then we need to just say, hey, you know what? We're not listening and responding to anybody anymore. This is not reactive marketing. We're believing and standing for who we are and what we do. And that was the Windows 10 launch. The Windows 10 launch, I think, was a turning point for us in that it wasn't about relativity. It was all about future and innovation. Without a lot of context, I'll just play this spot.
Imagine, these kids won't have to remember passwords or obsess about security. For them, every screen is meant to be touched, and web pages are meant to be scribbled on and shared. They'll expect their devices to listen to them and talk, and sing, tell a funny joke. And as they grow and get better at things, their technology will too. They'll do things their parents never even dreamed of. Because these kids will grow up with Windows 10. The future starts now, for all of us. Get started today. Windows 10, a more human way to do.
And of course, you can imagine the meeting when we went into a room full of relatively middle-aged white men and said, we're going to launch this with babies. And they're all like, what? What? But we had data, and the data was our friend, and we basically sold the idea in. The response, as you can see, was phenomenal in terms of impact in the marketplace. We really outperformed Nielsen Norm, outperformed the competition, great response from the marketing press. The most important thing was the over 1,300 emails I received internally from people who just says, this is the company I work for. This is the company I believe in, and we're so glad you're showing us the way we deserve to be showed. So quickly, before I segue to Kajoli, and we'll go through just a couple of our real-life example slides, this is a summary of basically over the last 12, 13 months, the Nielsen data on our ad performance relative to the competition. And as you can see, if you could see it on this slide versus that slide, the green's a lot brighter. There's a lot of green up there. And as you know, first of all, you have to get noticed. Second of all, you have to have that notice attached to your brand. And third of all, they've got to recall and replay your message. And that's what we look at as a success. And I would say our batting average is pretty darn good these days, and we really credit our friends in research with that. So I'll turn it over to Kajoli.
Showed you there's a lot of creative genius that she and her team bring to the party. But here's a contradiction in Microsoft. We are very, very mathematically and data-driven. So you'll see we have all this amazing creative strategy and originality, and then we have to back it up with strong mathematics. And again, this is an August advertising research group, so I'm not going to tell you about all the boring things that you all know about already. We do message testing, concept testing, all that stuff we do. I'll talk about the things that are unique about Microsoft. So the few things that are really unique is first speed, and again, this is speed at a global level. So when Kathleen, for example, wants to launch Windows 8 in 42 countries, I have to figure out how to do pre-testing in 42 countries. So so we have to have the speed at a really global level. The second thing is scale. So that is one of the really unusual things about Microsoft advertising research is that we do things at the kind of scale that I wouldn't believe possible. So for instance, we have a campaign tracker that I call my Ice Beast, and we literally take advantage of the rotation of the Earth to get results to Kathleen in real time. So this is a classic recognition-based advertising tracker, but we close on Sunday, the data goes to Germany, and their Monday morning starts when we are still sleeping. And then by the time the sun rises in Seattle, we have a table, and then we are ready to present to Kathleen on Tuesday. And that's kind of what enables us to do really good in-market optimization. Because unlike the old times where you would produce one ad, then you would put it in the market, you would have one standard banner, one rich media spot, and you would put it in the market, and then based on pre-testing, and that's all you would do, you would assume that this worked well or not, and you would try to diagnose how your brand was doing based on what your pre-testing told you. But that's not the way we work in Microsoft. And of course, one of the reasons that makes it possible is the kind of scale that the advertising folks create. So, if you know your ad is performing poorly in market, there's nothing you can do if you don't have a second or a third ad waiting in the wings. And that's what Kathleen's team does, is they have a second or third ad waiting in the wings, and when you're spending millions of dollars, if instead of running an ad for 18 weeks, if you're running it for a few weeks and figuring out it didn't work and you have something else to replace it with, you optimize the money for Microsoft advertising really well. So that's scale. Second is, the third thing is experimentation. So, because of Microsoft's scale, so when we do ad recognition, so for example, when we launched Windows 8, we had ad recognition in the range of 85, 90%, so this is massive. And so, we found digital was very, very hard to measure. There's a lot of nonsense going around in digital measurement right now. So we kind of launched our own attribution model. We've got this cookie warehouse where we take the perception results, we marry it to the exposure results, and we do attribution modeling, which is kind of the best that I've seen. And finally, mathematical precision. So I'll show you a couple of the things that we show Kathleen and Chris Capicella, who's our CMO, every week. And it is all done with an insane mathematical precision. So basically, based on past behavior, we are predicting future behavior. So we say that at this amount of TRP spent, this should be the destiny of the recognition of the ad. And then if you meet it, then you get a green or not. So that's kind of the mathematical precision that Kathleen demands from us. Okay. So this is kind of, we call this the advertising war room. Okay. And this happens every week or every 2 weeks. And basically, we show all the data. I already talked about how we turn around the data within a day. And we basically show the data to Kathleen and Chris, and we get all the decision stakeholders are there in the room, and we decide right there. So I come in with recommendations, but we make decisions in that room. So
I think that's one of the key things to success. I think one of the things that kills a great campaign or great creative quickly is the urban myths that swirl in the hallways. And what we do is we shut down any conversation about ad performance except in this room. You're just not allowed to talk about it. If you want to bring up an issue, you bring it up here. And then you don't get this, I don't like it because I didn't like the, it's data driven.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So this has been super helpful. And even the decisions are all made in the room. The final thing that has been really important and I'll show you some of the data, we show Kathleen every week. Which is, we have very clear goals. So right in the beginning of the campaign, we say we have agreement from all the stakeholders that these are the goals. This is how a campaign will be judged as to whether it's successful or not, and then we stick to it. And as I mentioned, we have great mathematical precision. We're showing you actual data, so I would really appreciate if not too many photographs are taken. OK. So for example, here is what we had for surface. Okay? So this is an actual slide from one of the war room decks. So we know for our category, purchase intent has an 85% plus correlation to sales. So that's why we pick this metric. So no matter what the advertising, Kathleen always wants to look at purchase intent. So, and you see it's color coded.
For sissies.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see all the green color coding. This basically means that we met our purchase intent forecast in all of these geos. Okay? Then we pick a bunch of brand perceptions. The brand perceptions we picked for the brand surface are the brand perceptions that show derived importance to purchase intent. Then finally, on your extreme, what is that, left, right, left? Yeah, that's left. You see the ads that are running in the market. For each ad, we had created a recognition forecast. So we are going to look at how you're performing compared to where you should be based on the amount you spend on it. Okay? So that's kind of the way we look at it. So, and everything, as you can see, both this purchase intent as well as recognition has a forecast. So you're either you're meeting your forecast or not. So there's not this, earlier, in some less evolved times, we would just say move purchase intent by 5 points. So it's statistically significant. But in fact, if you look at the seasonality of this category, that is just like bullshit. So you could literally pick your time for if you pick your baseline wisely, you could just rig the game. And that's kind of not what we want to do here.
Yeah, and this is a great example, not to take time, but this example of the break the rules spot was a Surface 4 launch spot, which in pre-testing was higher than anything else you see on this chart. So we looked at it, we said, what's going on in market? Something's wonky.
Yeah.
And as we diagnosed in the room, it turns out we went from Q1 TV buying, which was basically July, August, and September when we launched Windows 10, tons of frequency because basically crappy programs on, to Q2 premieres, less frequency, a lot of quality, and we weren't meeting a frequency threshold that enabled that spot to succeed. So normally in the old days, it'd be, oh, that creative was a piece of crap. We're like, yeah, no, we got a media buying issue. We immediately added frequency to the campaign and cut 15s, which naturally added frequency, and boom, the thing went off the charts. So that's the kind of real-time analysis and iteration that happens in the room.
So that's really a great example, and we were really thinking about that when the group before us was talking about how to separate creative from media.
Yeah.
So that was one example where we did that. Okay. And then so here, you saw the newest user ad that Kathleen shared with you. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of what exactly does recognition look like. So on your right side, you can see this purple line, which is basically, actually it's supposed to be bright purple, but it kind of looks purplish. This purplish line, that is basically the forecast based on the TRPs that were actually invested. So we have created this forecast based on past campaign performance, and then the idea is to meet it. So right now at this particular week, when I'm showing this to Kathleen, we are basically saying we should be at 45%, that was my expectation, and we're actually at 50%, so this is good, okay? Then we're also continuously, as the campaign runs along, you kind of keep an eye on wear out because you're a little bit worried that if your ad runs for a long time, consumers could get tired of seeing it. So we look at 3 metrics for people who say they have recognized the campaign. By that, I mean they're actual recognizers of the stimulus. That's shown at the end of the ICE survey. So we ask them, are you getting new information? Are you tired of the ad? Are you enjoying seeing it? So we kind of keep our eyes on those metrics. And finally, on this extreme side, this other side, you can kind of see we are looking at deltas, the differences between ad recognizers and non-recognizers. And of course, I don't need to tell this audience that what is important in the deltas, the difference between recs and non-recs, are the patterns and the number of people among which we are getting these deltas in, not necessarily the deltas themselves. But that's kind of the way we look at it. We look at the patterns of all of this. So this is kind of an ad performance slide, and we kind of know how individually the ad is doing. Okay. And then, we decided that we really want to look at how the competition is doing along with us, and we look at that almost.
We just went to red, just telling you.
Oh, okay, we just finished up. So basically, we're kind of trying to look at, how the competition is doing compared to us, and this also sometimes causes us to make certain decisions. If we see a lot of ads are running from our competition that's doing really well, maybe we need to put one more in the market and buy some media, okay? So, and then, of course, we look at market mix analysis, and I will end here.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up by saying, this is who the new Microsoft is and looks like. It achieved exactly what we wanted to. He's much better dressed and much thinner and handsomer. We basically inform the company's mission and culture now through the advertising and marketing, because our mission is to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more.